to the Finance and Tech Podcast. I'm your host and Chief Finance Techie, Simon Ritchie. This is the show where we dive into all things technology for finance teams. I interview other finance techies, finance leaders, and industry legends who share their stories, strategies, and insights to help you build and grow your career in finance. In this episode, I speak to Paul Barnhurst. Paul is an expert in finance planning and analysis. He's known as the FP&A guy. He's a finance tech influencer with over 85,000 followers on LinkedIn. He's been referred to as the Kim Kardashian of FP&A. He's great fun, and I really loved talking to him in this episode. He's one of my favorite people to follow on LinkedIn. Today, we deep dive into FP&A. And I love Paul's description of FP&A as being about helping businesses spend the next dollar wisely. We chat through FP&A trends, the increasing commercial focus of FP&A, how CFOs are increasingly rising up the ranks from FP&A because you're spending so much time working with the business, deep diving into strategy. It's a really great place to learn the skills that you need to be a great CFO. We also talk tech. We talk about Excel. We talk about different options for financial modeling and planning, some of the different FP&A solutions, as well as the role of automation and AI. Paul gives us a real great insight into his background, his journey and personal experience in FP&A, as well as some fun and memorable moments that some great questions I threw at him. So stay tuned for this fantastic episode. Hello, Paul. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Simon. I'm really excited to be here and get to spend a few minutes with you.
Yeah, awesome. You're one of my FP&A heroes, so I was really delighted that we could get you on. Maybe just for the audience, you could start with a quick intro, a bit on background, a bit on what you're up to right now.
Yeah, I like to call myself FP&A hero. No, I'm just kidding. That's a term I've never heard before. But yeah, a little bit about me. So, obviously my name's Paul Barnhurst. The moniker that I used, I don't know, about 4 or 5 years ago on LinkedIn was the FP&A guy one time as a hashtag, and it stuck. And it's now the name of my business. It's my website. I even have a shirt that says the FP&A guy. It's my logo. And so it's kind of become a brand, and it's worked well for me. And as you can guess, I talk about FP&A, right? My business, I talk a lot about software, Excel, and then just general FP&A. I do training. I do a little bit of consulting. I do some podcasts and different things like that. And so really everything around FP&A is what I do today for a full-time business.
Fantastic. Amazing. And I heard, actually, when I was doing my research, I heard that you have a bit of a nickname as well as the FP&A guy. Do you want to have a guess at what I turned up in my my research?
I'm really curious to know. I have a few thoughts, but the panda guy, is that the one?
No, not the panda guy. This was the Kim Kardashian of FP&A.
I forgot it. So do you want to know the backstory on that one?
Please. That's exactly what I want. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I figured as much. So I was on the call one day with a vendor. I won't mention the name, their marketing team. And they're all, you're a social media influencer. You're famous. You're like the guy in finance. And I jokingly just said, yeah, you can call me the Kim Kardashian of finance.
Okay.
And so that's where it started. Then one day I decided to have fun with it. And I put it out as a post online just to get some laughs. So that's where it started. I called myself that. Probably not the brightest thing to do, but I did.
Well, it's good to have fun, isn't it? Yeah, awesome. Just a couple of quick questions I'd like to start before we dive into the topic today, which is all about FP&A. Surprise, surprise. But what would you say is the best career advice that you've got so far in your career?
That's a really good question. I think the best advice I've received is focus on what's important first. The times I've done best is when I take time for myself before work, before career. So whether, exercising, if you're somebody who, reads the good book, reading that, meditating, eating well, putting family first. If you have those core foundational things that you don't let work overtake, you find less stress, you find you're more successful. I think that's the best advice I've given, and I'm still trying to find the right balance on that. I don't always do a great job, and there's times I let it go because, well, I got to get this project done. But I really find when you focus on those foundational things first, I'd say that's the best advice I've been given, that everything else will take care of itself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fantastic. And perfect time, perfect for me as well. I was thinking I'm really busy at the moment. I got to keep pushing, but you're right. If you take the time, you approach all your work in a much better from a much better place. You've got a couple of podcasts. I'm a big fan. One's called FP&A Today, and one called Financial Modelers Corner. And it looks like you just passed 200,000 downloads. So well done.
Thank
Congratulations.
you.
Are you going to get a
Appreciate that.
plaque put on the wall? Do you get, does
If I hit
anybody
1,000,000, I might get a plaque up
a
there.
million? Okay. Okay.
So I got a few
Okay.
years to go.
2 years to go. All right. Well, let's get over and get listening, guys. If you could interview 3 people in 2024 across the podcasts, who would be your ideal? Or a
Okay,
few.
so yeah, if I could interview anyone for the podcast in those subjects, I would love to have an interview with Warren Buffett. Right? Wouldn't everybody?
Boom.
He would be near the top of my list for sure. I would also, kind of along those same vein, the second person I do is Paul Munger, his partner, or Charlie, not Paul, Charlie Munger, because
Yeah.
I just love his wit and his sense of humor and his frankness. So I think those two would be awesome to have on a show.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I don't know if there's specific names. There's lots of great people.
Yeah.
I think
Kim Kardashian.
yes, Kim Kardashian, definitely. I would love to know how she builds her financial models for
I bet.
her intimate apparel or whatever she sells these days, right?
Yeah.
No, I'd have to think about who the third one would be, but I think somebody, In Bremer would actually be a great one. I would love to have him on to just talk about the economy and the importance of understanding it in FP&A and modeling, and his perspective on things. I got to listen to him speak last month at AFP, and he was fabulous. He was just really good.
Awesome. Fantastic. So let's jump in. So I thought today we'd talk about FP&A, finance planning and analysis. And so maybe you could start with your definition of FP&A. What is it? And when
Yeah, so I mean, a great way to think of it is, right, planning is the core part of it. And when you think of planning, for those who know nothing about FP&A, a good way to think about it is, do you have a budget in your life? Have you ever done budgets and looked at how close your actuals were to it? That is a core part of planning, but it's for a corporate. So that's the P in there. And obviously you're coming from a financial perspective, your P&L, your balance sheet. And then the analysis is the part where you're helping the business make better decisions. So when you get to a more technical definition, the way I like to think of FP&A is responsible for ensuring the company best spend the next dollar, right? Accounting is historical. They make sure everything is recorded correctly and you understand your past. FP&A helps you make sure you maximize and optimize your future.
Yeah, that's awesome. Nice. When did you discover, or when did you first hear that term FP&A? And then, when did you discover that's something that you actually really liked?
I don't ever remember hearing it in college. I did an MBA. I got a financial analyst role, and I started to deal a little bit with forecasting in that role. And really, for me, I didn't know if I'd like FP&A. I enjoyed some of the forecasting. I knew I liked finance, but an opportunity came up for an FP&A role that was a promotion. And I had some experience. I knew the hiring manager, and it was like, can I make more money? Okay, sign me up. So that's really how I got my first FP&A role. Like many of us, it came down to more money, more responsibility, and I'm not really enjoying this role. So let's try something different. And surprisingly enough, 15 years later, I'm still in FP&A. That was, 2010, 2009, whenever it was. And as I started to do it more, what I found I really enjoyed was working with the business and being involved and having those discussions and helping provide insights and value to help the business grow.
Yeah, awesome. For anybody who hasn't worked in FP&A, what does it look like day to day when you say you're working with the business? What does that look like?
Yeah, definitely it varies a lot by company and role. But what I'll say is, there's a few core things. One, helping build the budget is one of those core things you'll do. So sitting down with the business and saying, okay, we have a target to get to 12 million. How many people do we need to hire? When do we need to hire them? What's going to be the cost? So if we have a goal to grow sales by 30%, how are we going to do that? Do we need to increase the marketing budget? And having those discussions and putting it down on paper, what that will look like, is one of the core pieces of the planning side. On the analysis side, it's happening throughout the year. So, hey, if churn is up, it's helping the business understand why. Doing some ad hoc analysis to find, okay, what we found is in a certain state is where most of our churn's coming from, or a certain country. Why is that? Did they change a rule recently? Did they change a law? So there's a lot of digging in, and sometimes it's figuring out why something's going on. And other times it's helping to decide, does a project make sense? Like, we want to launch a new product. Okay, well, what would that look like? What do we think is realistic revenue? And really challenging the business, because often we've all seen it. The initial business assumption is all roses. Oh yeah, we can grow 400% for the next 5 years. And we're going to sell traveler's checks. How's that going to work? And so you have to be that voice of reason with the business from a financial lens to say, oh, here's what that would take. Do you really think that is achievable? Because sometimes, people get really optimistic and don't think what is possible.
Fantastic. And then within FP&A, you're doing a lot of financial modeling. I was actually thought you'd be a great person to answer this question, because you've got a podcast on FP&A and a podcast on financial modeling. So what's the difference?
Yeah, so the way I'd look at it is financial modeling, I argue, is the number one corporate decision-making tool.
Okay.
That could be for an M&A transaction.
Yeah.
That could be, something to do with corp dev. That could be with a capital expense. So financial modeling is a discipline that people learn. It can be its own career in IB or, in other areas, private equity, building those models as a career.
Yeah.
But within FP&A, it's one tool that you use in your toolkit. Very important one to, forecast things and make decisions. So that's kind of where I'd separate them. FP&A is a specific role and has its responsibilities. Financial modeling is something people use as a decision-making tool across the spectrum.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you're working together. But FP&A, what I found, I suppose, is like FP&A. Just because you're good in FP&A doesn't mean you're good at financial modeling.
100%.
And the other way around. They're not the same.
Correct.
Like, there's a lot of FP&A roles where you wouldn't touch a balance sheet or a cash flow. You may just be focused on one, especially in a big company, you may just be focused on one part or one slice of a P&L, or profit and loss.
Correct. I'll tell you a dirty little secret. I didn't build my first 3-statement model for work till a year and a half ago for a company.
Yeah.
They paid me to build it, and that was the first one I did. And it took me a while to get that balance sheet to balance. I'll tell you what.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, because I'd worked for all big companies and it wasn't something I had to do for work, where other people will say, hey, the number one thing is you need to build a 3-statement model. I'm like, okay, you've always worked for small companies. You can quickly tell kind of size of company and experience based on how they think about the 3-statement model.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And whether they're primarily involved in an M&A, a merger and acquisition, like a purchase, because they look at certain things, certain ratios, versus working internally, helping with a lot of budgeting.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Because you think of a big company like American Express. That's where I started my career. Yep. They're not asking everybody to build a 3-statement model and trying to roll it up. It doesn't make sense.
No.
But if I go to a startup tomorrow, you better be able to do the 3-statement and understand cash, or you're going to have a problem real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've been learning that a lot in my startup journey. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And then financial modeling is actually in vogue right now. I don't know if you'll tell me if it's right now or if this has been happening a long time, but you were telling me that you're off to the collegiate championships and then off to Las Vegas to watch the financial modeling World Cup. What's going on?
Yeah, it's definitely become more popular. I don't know if I'd say it's in vogue, but the opportunities came up, something I never thought I'd do. I got the opportunity to compete this last year, and one of
Awesome.
the rounds. I should say I got the opportunity to get annihilated, but that's another story. You just saw my name at the bottom of the leaderboard as I froze up, but it was a good learning experience. But yeah, it's become really, it's definitely become bigger. You see a lot of people doing it, and I thought it would be a great opportunity to meet some of the people. It's a great way for anyone who wants to improve their modeling skills to do. I've talked
Yeah,
to enough people that compete that they all say the benefits are incredible on how much better of a modeler they become
yeah.
by trying these competitions.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. So it's a great way to get to develop. So let's talk about FP&A and what it takes, and what are some of the key skills that you need to get into FP&A. So who would you say would enjoy a role in FP&A, and what are the key skills that they should sort of
Yeah,
find?
I mean, I think one, people that enjoy working with the business. I think you need to be somebody that, one, you need to enjoy numbers because you
Yeah,
are going to spend a fair amount of time in spreadsheets. You need to enjoy analyzing data.
yeah,
But beyond that, you need to enjoy really learning how a business works and being able to see a lot of different things. Because rarely are you the one following everything through. Often you're involved in it and you're following up. So you're usually not, the project based and all these things are the one on the ground, but you're someone who a little bit more of a strategic and to help guide it and to follow
mhm,
up and analyze and make sure it's successful. So if you enjoy analysis, you enjoy financial numbers, and you enjoy being a partner with people, I think it's a great role. I mean, the visibility of FP&A today to even 5-10 years ago is incredible. It's
yeah,
really starting to, people are more and more seeing the value of it within their organizations.
yeah, yeah. Amazing. So I suppose, what is it about FP&A that you loved so much? Like, how did that you decide, actually I'm going to go and start a business, training, consulting on this?
Yeah, so I think the things I enjoyed most in the role, first and foremost, was the business partnering. When I had a seat at the table and I could have real conversations and make a difference.
Yeah.
And some examples I think of is I've shared this before, but I still remember sitting in a meeting, we're having a conversation about pricing, and they turned to me and asked, "Hey, what should the price be?" And I said, "Look, my job isn't to set the price. I'll give you my opinions, but ultimately I can tell you what margin we need to be successful.
Yeah.
But you guys need to figure that out." And then we continue to have a conversation. But what that entire meeting helped me realize is I was a partner. They valued my opinion.
Yeah.
And I loved those type of situations where I could really have those conversations and drive a difference. I always also love when I can find an insight.
Mm,
Look through data and be like, "Oh, did we notice this? And here's how we could use it to help us. Like, have we thought about trying this strategy, or have we thought about trying that?" So bringing the strategic side to it and having those conversations. And then I love building a model and digging into data. I'm a data nerd. I'm a nerd at heart.
yeah.
So
Same. Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. So let's chat some trends in FP&A. So what would you say are some of the key trends that are quite topical right now?
yeah, I mean, it's a great question. So I'll start with one that I think a lot of people will like. What we're seeing is more and more CFOs are coming from FP&A. Jack McCulloch of CFO Leadership Council predicted a few years ago that the majority of CFOs would come from FP&A. He's now
Mm,
saying he thinks that'll probably be 2026 or so. We're a couple years away from that, but we're seeing that trend. So first, it's a great place to be. Second, we're seeing is more and more is being asked of FP&A. So I think burnout is real. It's something people need to watch for and be careful about. And then a couple other things, scenario planning is much more important than it ever was before. And the last thing we're seeing is, FP&A is still struggling with how do we manage all the data? Data prep still takes up data prep and non-value add activities take the majority of FP&A's time. And that can often lead to dissatisfaction in jobs.
yeah.
And
I
I've
think.
been in that situation where I'm spending
Yeah.
almost all my time on the data, and you're just like, I'm just tired. I'm sick
Yeah.
of manipulating and cleaning data. So I think that's still a real challenge. Tools are getting better,
Yeah.
technology is getting better, people are getting better with their skill sets, but it's still a real challenge in FP&A.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we had Brent Dykes on the show recently, so we were chatting about data storytelling and data prep, and it took me right back to those days of spending all my time digging through the data, and then I would sort of just drop the ball at that last mile, and not take any time writing a decent analysis. I'd just send a file to somebody, and it just kind of it was just the value didn't land.
So I'll say two things to that. First, I know Brett personally because we live in the
Yeah.
same. He lives about 40 miles away, so we've got to have lunch
Amazing.
and
Yeah.
we meet about once a month. Great guy, I love Brett. But the second, when you said the last mile, it still sticks out to me. I spent 6 months on the project, aligned it with everybody, went to
Okay.
present to the CFO, thought I knew everything, and about 5 minutes in, the call just fell apart. Now the
Oh.
general manager was called in the room. We ended up getting approval at the end of the day. But I remember I went to my boss and I said, "What happened?" And I'll never forget his words. They echo in my brain to this day. He's like, "Your analysis was brilliant. Your presentation lacked." I was just like, "All right." So I
Okay.
forgot about the last mile, is what you're
Yeah.
telling me, as Brett
Yeah.
Dykes would put it.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Very good. Fantastic. So let's chat tech, because I love to chat tech on the show. So, do you think that that FP&A team should be running everything in Excel right now?
As a general rule, no. I think every company should have a spreadsheet. I
Yeah.
think, it's great for edge cases. And depending on your company size, yes, you can do everything. But, it is not an enterprise grade application in and of itself. There's privacy, there's security, there's data modeling, there's bringing in all the tables. There's a lot of things that Excel wasn't designed to do. And yes, are there ways you can get around it? And yes, can you do it all in Excel?
Yeah.
Should you? When the complexity hits a certain level, no, you shouldn't. That's when you should look to bring in a third party. And that's going to vary by company, by skill
Mm,
set, by a lot of different things. Some companies are going to be okay at 100 million still planning in a spreadsheet. And
yeah.
other companies at 2 million shouldn't be planning in a spreadsheet.
Yeah. Yeah.
There are enough tools out there that if anyone wants to get away from a spreadsheet, they have plenty of options.
Yeah. 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 That's awesome. I think about this. I think nowadays, if you're a sales team, then having a CRM, a customer relationship management
Mm-hmm.
software, is just like it's become a no-brainer.
Yeah.
If you mind back to 10, 15 years ago, there was all these people still thinking, no, you just have a database over there or have a spreadsheet, it's fine. And the number of times, even just in my startup in the last year, that I've found myself turning back to a spreadsheet because I just need to have this list of names, and then so it pulls you back. But I,
Mm-hmm.
as finance people, I wonder when that point will be that we accept, or what are the factors that go into, when deciding when an FP&A should move to an FP&A
So
solution.
I'll share a couple thoughts on that that go a little deeper. One, I think, as data continues to grow,
Mm,
that need becomes greater and greater to have something more than that. An
yeah,
example of that, if anyone knows who the SaaS CFO is, Ben Murray, he
yeah,
does a tech stack survey every year. And every year, the number of people using a tool beyond spreadsheets has grown. It's getting higher. So I think we're starting to hit a critical mass where people are realizing, just by the sheer amount of data and the needs, that something beyond just a spreadsheet is needed.
yeah, yeah,
Like I said, when and how that's going to vary. But I think we're seeing more and more the need. There's also the challenge of, can the tools meet the need? Because we know most implementations fail.
yeah,
And we know from data that most people still use the spreadsheet at some level to plan, even
yeah,
if they have a tool.
yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so the tools need to be flexible, easy enough, and I think affordable.
Yeah, and
Just
yeah, easy to understand. And flexibility is always a challenge, right? Because nothing beats the spreadsheet when it comes to flexibility.
flexibility, yeah, it's sort of it's something that you learn from quite a young age in schooling nowadays. So
Yep.
yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about some of the other waves in tech. So automation is big, AI is big. What do you think the impact effect on FP&A will be?
Yeah, I think it's all going to continue to have an impact. I mean,
Mm,
AI, if you're not paying attention to it, I will say shame on you. Do
yeah,
you need to be using it all the time? No, it's going to vary by role. But you
yeah,
do need to start figuring out how you can use it. how it works, why it's important, yes, or you're going to get left behind. I mean, I used it earlier today. I use it regularly to help me in
Yeah.
different areas of my business. And it's a great productivity tool. And I think the biggest thing it should help with over time is cleaning up data, doing some base analysis. A lot of tasks that are routine. Like I had a business that was so consistent. Had we had AI like today, I probably could have had it write my variance commentary and make no changes every month. It'll
Yeah.
save me a couple
Yeah.
hours. Just press a button and it's pretty much done. And I don't know that anyone would have noticed much of a difference other than it probably would have been written more consistently,
Yeah.
which is probably better, frankly.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so if you can leverage that, being very careful about where you're putting your data, who you're giving,
Mm-hmm.
if you're sending your company's numbers into ChatGPT, I'd think again.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Go and figure out like a really decent, robust privacy solution. But if you can automate the heck out of that commentary, and you can create a bunch of time to go and do value add, that's the dream, isn't it?
Exactly. It's really, you want to automate the low hanging fruit and
Yeah.
it will help with that and it will get better with time and it will simplify things.
hmm Yeah, absolutely. One of the other things that I've talked to a bunch of sort of investors and different people who have a thesis on what's
Sure.
going to happen with FP&A. And so there are some that believe that a lot of the accounting vendors, and a lot of them have tried to add planning solutions in the past, and they come out with varying success. So there's some that believe that a lot of those accounting solutions will nail it and will finally bring in decent reporting, decent planning into a big platform approach. Or there are some where some people would rather go with a best of breed approach where you get a really good BI tool, a really good planning tool sitting next to accounting. What do you think?
Yeah, I think there's definitely room for FP&A tools. I do think, some of the ERPs will figure it out and get better, I'm sure, but there's always people that prefer a best of breed versus
Mm,
an all-in-one approach. So I think there's room for both. What I do think we'll see more of, and it's a little bit of a shift, is one, somebody will figure out a way to that data layer better than it is today. Because if you look at FP&A tools, almost every one of them is pulling the data into a database themselves,
yeah.
writing all their rules, and then someone's also pulling similar data into a data warehouse.
Mm,
When does it come to someone figures out that layer where you're just writing the rules on top of it and you're working off the same data source? More of that integration in the BI and the FP&A. I think we're heading toward that because it's really inefficient. It's
yeah.
why you're seeing kind of a merge of FP&A and BI, and you're seeing some solutions that are BI first with an FP&A add-on to them,
Yeah.
commercial off the shelf, whether that be Power BI or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're seeing FP&A tools start to add more and more BI functionality.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think that to me is more of the interesting to watch, is to
Mm,
see how that develops and how the data develops versus will the ERP solve it and dominate the market? Because
yeah.
I think there's always room for a best of breed approach.
Yeah. 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 That's awesome. I like to ask this magic wand question when I do UX research, or I do a user research interview. So I thought we're giving you a practitioner. Maybe you can wind back, and if I gave you a magic wand and you could improve a system, or you could kind of wave the wand and improve something from your day to day, what would you wish for?
So I would say in all three companies I worked at, if there's one thing I could change that would allow me to have accomplished more, it would be to have a good master data
Yeah,
and that flow throughout the systems. Because the time spent on data prep was just incredible because of the lack of that. I mean, I don't know how many times I saw the word Delta Airlines spelled, but there's a lot of different variations you can have of it, surprisingly enough.
right. Yeah, awesome. So a lot around data prep and consistency of data.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Really kind of having that,
yeah,
so having that master data that's a challenge for companies so that each system can speak to each other
yeah,
without having to manually pull them out and create mapping tables.
yeah, yeah. And then the mapping tables live in somebody's file somewhere where you can't get it when you need it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yep, we've all had those offline spreadsheet mapping tables in our career. If you've worked
Yeah,
in data or
yeah,
finance, you've done it.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
question of
yeah.
when.
Exactly. Um, and I suppose anything else from the tech world in the broader finance tech space that's top of mind for you right now?
I think AI obviously is top of mind. I think for me, the biggest thing that's top of mind is helping finance professionals realize there's lots of solutions. There's
Mm,
solutions that will meet your needs, but technology is not a solution.
mm.
Technology is an enabler. One of my favorite quotes, and it was Hassert Consulting. I think it was Robert or Jim. I can't remember the guy's name, but the founder of it. He said, old processes plus new technology equals expensive, broken, old processes.
Yeah.
And it's so true. And I love
Yeah,
that. It starts with people,
yeah,
processes, then technology. Get your people right,
yeah,
work on streamlining your processes, having a culture of automation, then leverage technology to allow you to do more. Don't bring in technology and say, oh, that will solve our problems. We'll just layer it on top of our processes and it will automate everything, because you're
yeah,
just setting yourself up for failure.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Amazing. Um, One of my favorite questions to ask whenever I get a chance is about a power pose memory. So I used to do this thing on stage where I used to stand up and do a power pose, just to warm myself up. Or you kind of just wander on stage and then you just stand there for a minute, just and then you just get into the right frame of mind to get going. Do you have a memorable moment or story from your career, or even from recent events that you've been at, that you think, yeah, I'm particularly proud of that. That deserves a power pose.
You know, that's a great question. I'm actually going to go non-career. I'm going to go something a little more
Oh,
personal.
perfect.
I was 17 years old
Yeah.
and I trained for and ran my first marathon through the
Nice.
mountains of Salt Lake. So it was a tough course.
Okay.
And I still remember my first mile I ran. I heard someone say the time at around a mile. It was like 5:20, and I'd never ran a mile under 5:10. So I'm like, maybe I should slow
Yeah.
down. Like, it might have been 5:30, but it was cooking. I mean, if I
Yeah.
kept that pace, I would have been probably
Yeah.
top 10 in the race. I was moving.
Wow. Wow.
And so I slowed down the next couple miles. I was feeling great. For 16 miles in that race, not a single person passed me. I got into the top 10 and I was running borderline sub 3 hours for my first marathon ever. And
Wow.
then I hit the wall, which I
Oh.
didn't believe in because I was a 17-year-old punk who thought he could just do whatever he wanted.
Yeah.
And I still remember I'm about 6 miles to go. I've come out of the mountains and it's all rolling hills. It's downhill, but it's a lot of rolling. So it just beats up your legs. And someone passes me and I'm easily thinking, oh, I'm going to pass him back. And I push. I think I passed that person back. Then a minute later, another person passed me. I tried to go and there was just nothing left.
Oh.
And
Yeah.
I just struggled in those last 6 miles and I still ran a sub 3:10. I had a good race.
Impressive.
I was
Yeah.
really proud of that.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
was one. I came in third in my age group and that was the first time I ever did a marathon. And I think it's still my best time yet.
Yeah.
And even
Impressive.
though, even though I've done like 4 or 5 of them, I've never beaten that time. So that's
Yeah.
probably one that I was really proud of. There's my
That's
power
awesome.
pose for you.
That's awesome. That's worth the power pose. I've done a few marathons myself. I did one a couple of years ago. I like you. I'm an optimist. I didn't believe there was a wall, and then I didn't train very much because work was busy, and I hit the wall really early, and it was just painful.
Yeah.
So
I
yeah,
I could really. I had one year where I didn't train very much, and I ran
yeah,
half the race at a 6:30 pace. So I was moving, and I got all done. I finished in, I don't know, 3.5 hours. So I was 23, so I was young.
yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
then I all of a sudden started having blood in my urine, and I went to the doctor. And the doctor gives me the technical name. He goes, and I'll tell you the layman's term for that. We call that weekend warrior's disease because it was just waste buildup, is what had
yeah,
happened because I had
yeah.
abused my
Okay.
body.
Because you just
Because I
yeah.
didn't train properly. And then I tried to push myself at some crazy speed.
Weekend warrior syndrome. I like that.
So,
I
so
like
there you go. That was not a
yeah.
power pose moment.
No, no, absolutely, absolutely. Let's just run through a few questions, just quick fire, just to end. What is your favorite catchphrase to use with your team when you're out and about at work?
I don't know that I necessarily have a favorite one. Oh, I know what. Every time someone asks how I'm doing,
Yeah.
I will always say I'm living the dream.
There you go.
And they'll look at me and they go, I've been called a liar before. And I go, well, a nightmare is a form of a dream. And I never said I was living my dream. I just said I was living the dream.
Living the dream. Yeah.
So there you go. That's a fun one because I get all
There you
kinds of
go.
comments back on it.
Yeah, that's a snap one because that's mine as well. I use that a lot. What's your favorite chart to use and why?
Oh, that is a great question. I mean, obviously it's going to depend on the need. Pie would be my least favorite. I say
Okay.
pie is for two things: eating and playing Pac-Man. Um,
Yeah.
favorite, I love a good like just line chart that you combine with variances. There's a couple different ways to do it. So the top half, it may show absolute numbers,
Yeah.
and on the bottom you can quickly see variances. I
Yeah.
love those type of charts that give you both those information in the same.
Yeah. Awesome. What's your favorite place to get work done?
This is funny. Ever since I was a kid, when it's quiet, I love sitting at the heater, especially during the winter, blanket on, like kind
Yeah.
of enjoying the furnace
Uh-huh.
and working, just sitting on
Okay.
the floor. As a little
Yeah.
kid, I used to sit by the furnace and listen to sports games at night
Yeah.
in my home. And so
Uh,
that's kind of what I always do. My wife kind of laughs because she doesn't understand it at all. My daughter does it now. And she's like, she
okay.
got that from you.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome. Nice. What activity? This is actually perfect then. What activity, place, or person comes to mind when I say the words "living the dream"?
living the dream. I come to mind because I say it all the time.
That's called a circular reference, Paul.
I know, but if you use iterative calculations, you
Yeah,
can work around that.
there you go. There you go. Very good. What's something you have on your I want to learn more about this topic in the next 12 months?
Uh, you know, I'm hoping to actually up my Excel game and compete in some more financial modeling World Cups next
Nice.
year if I can make time.
Yeah.
That's on my list. On the personal side, I'd love to get a shop and do a little bit more on some woodwork type stuff.
Oh yeah, perfect. Yes, I've got my Christmas list this year has got all little tools on it, so I have a similar woodworking hobby. Um, what are you looking for help with right now?
I'm at that point where I'm considering hiring a virtual assistant. So
Nice.
that would probably be the area just because I have so many different projects going. I think, as you know, I recently just launched a planning community called Plan Buddies with a couple other people. And so that takes up
Yeah,
quite a bit of time.
yeah,
In addition to two podcasts, a
yeah,
consulting business, a market
yeah,
guide, all the
yeah.
different things. So
Businessman,
that's
excellent.
probably one of the biggest things that's on my mind right now is,
Uh-huh.
okay, at what point, when do I finally hire somebody to,
Yeah,
manage some of the more administrative tasks
yeah,
that
yeah,
doesn't make sense for me to do anymore?
yeah. Awesome. And if anyone wants to get in touch, what's the best place to find? Where's the best place to find you?
Yeah, so I mean, people can find me on LinkedIn. You'll see me there. My website, thefpnaguy.com. I mean, people are welcome to email me. It's pbarnhurst at thefpnaguy.com, and you can find it on the internet. You can find it on my LinkedIn profile. So those are probably the best ways to get a hold of me.
Awesome. Paul, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it. It was absolutely, yeah, fantastic to get you on. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Simon. I enjoyed it, and I look forward to seeing your podcast grow and what it will be like at episode 100.
Absolutely. Yeah, can't wait. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks.
Cheers.